Melt the resistance and open your heart with Transformation Thursdays.
Hello, hello, hello. Welcome, everybody, to another episode of Transformation Thursday. I'm your host, Winnie Wang. I'm a specialist, and I specialize in helping people release the trauma from their body. Now, I'm going to tell you, I'm so excited today because we have Terry McGill with us. Now, of course, this is his official bio, but this is the man that has saved me on my spiritual journey many, many times. And he's just a gem, and I can't wait to share him with you. Literally, I'm going to share a little bit of a story. Literally one day, he contacted me out of the blue on Facebook and said, Winnie, would you like a complimentary reading from Kuan Yin? And I'm like, yeah, of course. And then, the rest is history. So he's been my go-to guy for every single time I got confused in my life. Every time I'm in pain, I'm like, I need my son Terry. Okay, so let me give you the official introduction. Okay, so Terry, he said that he's an accident-prone kid. Over his life, he's had 11 concussions and was even told in 2007 that he probably wouldn't see his son graduate from high school, and that's in 18 months. He was very blessed and privileged to have the opportunity to study with a Chinese grandmaster of ancient healing arts. And as he got healed, he developed his psychic abilities. Now, Terry is a certified light transmission healer and a reader of the Akashic Records. Welcome, Terry.
Thank you, Winnie. I had forgotten about that first time that we connected.
Yeah. Okay, so tell us, what is the Akashic Records and what is an Akashic Records reading?
So the Akasha is a Sanskrit word, and it means everything. Literally everything, not just this planet or this galaxy, but in the entire universe or multiverse, or it's like literally everything. An Akashic record reader, everything. So let me just back up. That's the Akasha. So an Akashic record reader, in the Akasha, there's a record, a resonance, a vibration, frequency and vibration of everything that's ever been said or done forever. And some people, I don't read the future. Some people say, the future's there too. But so let me just note that we are in control of our future to a certain extent. And so, we've got free will. So Akashic record reading is I simply connect. If you've ever had a tarot reading, for example, or a tea leaf reading, what they're doing is they're connecting with the Akasha. Just don't use that term.
Yeah. So is it like you go to the library and you said, can I check out the book on that person? And then you open to a particular page or chapter so you can get some answers?
Yes and no. Number one, to get into this library, you have to have permission. Number two, there are levels. I know a whole bunch of self-taught Akashic record readers and others who've been through schools, and they don't access them at the really high levels. As I've developed, I was certified back in 2012, so it's like, 11 years ago. And then I had an advanced training earlier this year. And man alive, I jumped up like 2 or 3 levels after that training. So I don't hardly ever read about, how can I find my lost dog? I have a friend who does that. Can I get a message about how my grandfather is? Those are really rare. They rarely come through. What I work at is what's called the soul journey or life journey. People said, people come to me all the time because I do readings at New Renaissance Bookstore here in Portland, Oregon. And they'll just read a sentence on the description outside, and they come in and say, I'd like a reading. And, well, how'd you find me? I saw, and they tell me, one line off of that brochure outside that drew them in. And well, how can I help you? Well, I don't know what's going on with me. My life doesn't make sense anymore. I had one person, she had 50 employees, a very successful business. And she says, none of this has much meaning for me. I want to keep the business going because I'm serving people, and I've got 50 employees that I don't want to just be out of a job suddenly, and they'd be looking around. So I get people like that. I also get people who come in and say, I was walking down and I saw this billboard on the front porch of where I do readings, and I just thought I'd come in and sit down and I say, wonderful, how can I help you? And they don't know, but there was something that drew them. Other people come in, they got some very specific issues. One woman had a dislocated shoulder. She was going for surgery. She was from way out of town and came there just accidentally. Another psychologist has an office in the area, was walking by, and she signed up for an hour appointment. And and they don't know why. There's other people, though, that do know exactly why. I broke up with the love of my life, and I don't know what to do now. Or I know that I want to do whatever this is, and I'm stuck. It doesn't matter what I do, nothing works. And so Terry doesn't do the readings. Terry connects with the Akasha, with the person's Akashic record. And I just say, please borrow my mouth. And, let's hear what's going on. So that's the first step.
Yeah. So
I can go on forever.
Yes, I am sure the audience is really curious how this works. So are you up for doing little 10-minute sample of how this works?
Oh, yeah. You want to be the victim?
Yes, I want to be the demo. And I have a specific question, and don't worry, you can share anything with my listeners. I'm an open book, as you know. My question is, I feel like I have some narcissistic tendency where I have an inflated sense of self. And in particular, my trauma response seems to be, if I don't do it, then nobody's going to do it. So how this manifests is like, for example, when I was at MIT and I was majoring in computer science, let's say there are 4 programmers in a team. I would have the experience like I'm carrying 80% of the work on my shoulders because nobody shows up to the meetings and nobody wants to do anything. And if I want to hand in the assignment on time, then I got to do it. And I know that in this lifetime, it probably has to do with the fact that I am an immigrant and I came here by myself at 15. I have no family, no roots, nothing. And so I literally had to be like, okay, if I don't cook for myself, then there's no food. This kind of victim-y scarcity mindset. I'm really curious if this particular thing is a repeated pattern in my past lives, and what is the answer?
So let me connect. Now, Terry's going to get out of the way. Winnie, this is a root or core question for you. The answer is at the soul level, at the core level, the deepest parts of you are very clear that some things will not happen if you don't jump in and, as you said, carry 80% of the load. Important lesson for you in this lifetime is choose your battles, or because to you, it will feel like you're battling. So step back and go, okay, do I need to be giving so much of myself for this particular thing, whatever it is? Then be aware that there are two levels. You used a psychological term, narcissistic. Let me just clarify that us refers to wherever this information is coming from, up, I think of it up in heaven. Your soul has an agenda, several agendas, but the primary one is to develop you into a universal servant. Your job in this lifetime is to distinguish between, I can do that, I should do that, versus this is not my mind that says I should. This is something that is a core aspect. Some people call this soul journey, and there's other terms too. So for you, distinguish. Do you need to do this? And to do that, you need to be able to evaluate all that's on your plate and choose what's realistic that will not burn you out. You're very familiar with yin and yang. So you need to maintain balance. Balance of the 5 elements of the yin yang in your life so that you don't go into exhaustion psychically or physically. Narcissistic, I would recommend, so I is not Terry. The recommendation is that you do not use that term about yourself. And in fact, don't label anyone, but rather say, psychologists describe that as narcissistic, self-centered, etc. And then go into what is the feeling component for them. So for you, the guidance from this reading is, what is the feeling component? Terry couldn't do these readings after a 1-year course. It took him 3 years to complete the 1-year course because he was all in his head. The connection at the higher levels of awareness, greater enlightenment, you might use that term, or awareness, cannot be done from the mind. The mind is too limited, and it has the ego, the false ego, some call it. So go deeper, go into your heart, feel. And he can give you a wonderful meditation that in 5 minutes will take you out of panic, out of the mind, and into a state of calm, peace, and light. That is all for now. Thank you for asking.
Wow, thank you so much. Okay, so what happens with people after a reading?
Most of the people after a reading never reappear. The ones that do come back after 6 or 18 months, and they'll say things like, I had a reading 3 months or 4 months ago with you, and I'd like to get another one. And I go looking back through my client notebook, and it's like, no, it's not 3 or 4 months. This particular one was 18 months. And there were 3 specific, really big life challenges. And so when we met, I says, well, tell me about these 3 things. He says, not an issue with those. Let me tell you what I'm, focused on now. So over that period of time, one of the things that comes through, you didn't receive it in specifically and, in terms of words, but everything that comes through from that level is a light transmission. A blessing is another word that's used a lot. And when I'm working with people one-on-one, not using an example like this, usually almost always, there's an actual light transmission, blessing, whatever you want to call them, that comes through. They're very high level.
I feel it. I feel it. I also feel really calm because, you know, as you said, sometimes maybe we go on Instagram and you follow a bunch of people. And for me, I follow a lot of psychologists because in my experience, the trauma is trapped in the body, but it is the repeated conversations in the mind that keeps producing the pain in the body, right? So, for example, for many years, I thought that I was abandoned by my ex-husband. So because I thought that I was abandoned, so then I carried this as a pain, literally, in my body. It's not until very recently I discovered that actually my Yuanshen, which is my original soul, actually manifested the divorce. And that was so liberating for me because, as you said, my purpose in life is to serve, and my soul longs to be with a partner who also wants to serve unconditionally. So
let me jump back to something that you said, and that was the psychological terms, the mind, and so you're describing. There's 5 levels of healing. There's also 5 levels of getting wrecked, not getting healed, going into stuff. The purpose for everything that occurs to us is there's a lesson that we need to learn. That's why we incarnated. That's why we experience them. So I remember reading about a year ago, one of the top psychologists in the world, I'd even heard his name before, so I knew he was real. And he said, talk therapy can only go down, is only helpful for about 40%. And I went, I knew that. Now, I didn't know it at a conscious level, but boy, that resonated. And I did my web research, and what I found was that below talk therapy is sound. So singing bowls, gongs, things like that, and voices. I have a download or a transmission called Nian Li, and it has changed my voice over the last 6 or 7 years. And people keep saying, well, would you do a recording? Like, no, I don't have time. But you would go from talk therapy into sounds, but then the next level is symbols. Many people are familiar with Reiki. I know you and I are very familiar with what's called Tao or oneness calligraphy. And those are the most powerful that I know, because of the transmission, the light transmission that comes through them. They're like a portal to source. So what I want all of the listeners, the watchers, the listeners to know is that there are levels to deal with. What I do with a reading is I get Terry out of the way. The information that comes through is really, really, it's clear down. I think we can think of it as up or down. To me, I think is we go deeper and deeper. And down at the core level, or near as close to the core as the person is ready to hear, that's what comes through. Sometimes I listen to myself and I'm going, that's not very deep. But it was perfect for them. They told me that.
Yes, yes, yes. And thank you so much for telling us about the sound, right? Sometimes I feel like I listen to your meditation and I just hear your voice and I'm already in the state. Sometimes just listening to the voice of someone, I immediately connect to their vibration of peace, and that brings peace to my mind. Now, I know that you have this really awesome meditation that can help us bring peace to the mind. Can you tell us more about it, and how can the listeners get a hold of that?
Sure. 2008, July of 2008, it's like engraved in my mind now. I was working with a client, and I was sitting there and the work was being done, and I started hearing this meditation come out of my mouth. And when I'm in this state, I don't have much emotion because I'm not involved with it. I'm just kind of the witness. And afterwards, the client said, "Wow, I'm going to write that down." Write what down? Because it wasn't me. It wasn't in my memory even. But it started coming through consistently. And then it went to another level. So if people would like to have, I call it Dear My Mind. And there's so many parts of it that, I don't want to analyze it because that would take away from a person's experience. But if they would like to have it, they can just send me an email. Please send me Dear My Mind, a recording. And my email address is terrymcgill@comcast.net. And, no problem. I've got it there. It'll come as a recorded file. It's not visual. Free.
Perfect. That's so great. And for all the listeners out there, if you have a burning question and you want them answered, tell us about your website and how can they book a private session with you?
So the website is clearlyguided.com. A friend of mine, when I was trying to come up with a name for the website, and it needs to be upgraded, but to bring it up to date with who I am now. But she said, well, I'm hearing clearly guided because that's what you do. You give clear guidance. And I couldn't connect with that because I don't do it. But what comes through is, people call it heaven's guidance, or, my guides, or the ascended masters. I hear so many different people's terms for how they think or feel or catalog, information coming to them. So it's clearlyguided.com. And then that describes some of the services that I've offered over the years, still do. They're just at a much higher level because I'm really amazed that every time something goes on in my life and I work through it, my readings are at a higher level. And then I have to be able to interpret for my own self, because the people get what they get, and they tell me it, and it's like, thank you so much for it. Sometimes they're in tears.
Yeah. Okay. I am the biggest fan. I have been working with Terry. Oh my gosh. I'm going to say maybe 5 or 6 times a year for the last 4 years. Okay. So he's the real deal. You guys check out Terry McGill at clearlyguided.com. And thank you so much, Terry, for being with us today. And thank you everyone for liking, sharing, and subscribing this YouTube channel. And let me know if there's any content that you want to hear more of, and we'll see you next Thursday.
Please like, share, and subscribe. We equip people with the skills to navigate the ups and downs of life. Will you help us solve the mental health crisis? Please donate to Compassionate Transformation at lovect.net. Thank you, thank you, thank you.